Breaking news just moments ago, NBC News learned former President Donald Trump's attorneys have been told by Special Counsel Jack Smith's office to expect an indictment against the former president. Back with us, NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delaney. Ken, what's your latest hearing? What are you latest hearing on this?
Jose, it's really starting to look like today is going to be a very important day. Obviously, we can't say anything with certainty. As we learned yesterday in the Hunter Biden situation, the best laid plans of federal prosecutors can blow up in their face depending on how things transpire. And this is a secret process. But what we do know is that Trump attorneys Todd Blanche and John Lauro did in fact go to the special counsel's office, which is away from the Justice Department where I am, and meet with Jack Smith and his team today, and they were told to expect an indictment of their client, former President Donald Trump. And we know that the grand jury is meeting today. Grand jurors were spotted quite early, actually, this morning at the courthouse in Washington, D.C. And so it's very possible, and many people are expecting that they would vote to indict today, and then we may see that indictment today. And what I find interesting about this whole process is that it appears that the special counsel is operating differently than the way they did with the Mar-a-Lago indictment, where they clearly informed the Trump team that it was happening, and Trump made it public on Truth Social. In fact, after the indictment was handed up, Trump was the one that announced it to the world. It seems like the special counsel doesn't want that to happen this time, but we'll have to wait and see, Jose.
So how would an indictment be announced? Do we know?
Well, there are a lot of ways it can happen. Now, every day at the Justice Department, news releases are issued announcing indictments, and they generally they land in my inbox, and there's a summary of the case, and then there's a copy of the indictment that's posted for everyone to see, because that indictment was just unsealed. So what would happen, though, technically, is the grand jury would vote, and then that indictment would have to be handed up, is the term of art, handed up. And that has to happen in open court. It generally happens before a federal magistrate. So a member of the special counsel's team would walk over into the courtroom and hand up an indictment. Now, in D.C., I'm told the practice is to announce the initials. They'll say, "Do you have an indictment?" And the grand juror, usually it's the foreperson, the grand jury would say, "Yes, we have one against DT," for example. It's not clear that they'll do that in this case. Whether that's a custom, not a rule. And it's very possible that they would find a way to do this in a courtroom that reporters wouldn't discover. But of course, we're watching for that. And then at that point, there would either have been a request by the prosecutors to seal the indictment, in which case it would be sealed, or not. It's very possible that that indictment could be unsealed, in which case it would quickly become a public record as soon as the D.C. clerk makes it public and posts it to the electronic federal court website known as PACER, and also puts it in the clerk's office for anyone to see. So that could happen, or it could be sealed for some period of time. If it's sealed, then it has to be unsealed by order of a judge. So again, we'll have to wait and see.
We have breaking news in the special counsel's election interference case. I want to bring in NBC News correspondent Garrett. Hey, Garrett, what do we know?
Well, Jose, we're able to report now from two sources with direct knowledge of the situation that two of Donald Trump's attorneys have just been meeting with the special counsel here in the office building behind me. We saw a very similar meeting a few days before the announcement in the the announcement of an indictment in the classified documents case came through. As Tom and others have outlined, this is the kind of thing that you would typically see with attorneys coming in to try to do sort of a last-minute negotiation, convince prosecutors not to make charges against their client. We don't know the specifics of this meeting here, but it was widely reported that these attorneys were seen arriving here shortly around 10 o'clock this morning. We believe we just saw them depart about 11 o'clock today, after what we know was a meeting with the special counsel's office to discuss the strong possibility of an indictment of their client later today. It's our understanding that these lawyers have been told to expect an indictment against former President Trump related to this elections investigation, possibly as soon as today. Jose?
Garrett, thank you. And I want to bring back Catherine Christian, former Assistant District Attorney at the Manhattan DA's office and MSNBC legal analyst. And Catherine, just hearing this confirmation now by Garrett Haake, what does it tell you?
It's as he said, it's sort of a last minute, please don't indict my client meeting. quite surprised it didn't happen earlier, right after he received, he meaning Donald Trump, a target letter. Typically, that's when you try to plead your case on behalf of your client. So, they should have done this. They're doing it now. Because you want to make sure, as a defense attorney, you can tell your client that you've done everything you could to prevent, the inevitable from happening, and it didn't work. So I think the inevitable will happen in this case, but it hasn't happened yet. So I don't want to, make a prediction, but I think this is the last minute attempt.
And so, Catherine, we don't know if necessarily any of the Trump legal team did, in fact, meet before this morning with Smith's team. Could it be that there have been more than one meeting? Because it does seem unusual for this meeting to be the only one carried out just moments before, possibly, the indictment is revealed.
I agree. As I said, I would be surprised that it took this long to actually have a meeting. Now, there may have been conversations over the phone, exchange of letters, and shockingly, it wasn't leaked and we didn't know about it. So, as you put it, there may have been other conversations, and it wasn't just today at the last minute that this occurred. So, hopefully the reporting will let us, find that out. Because I said I would be surprised that they waited this long to actually speak to the special counsel.
And remembering that, of course, all this information comes out of Donald Trump, who is the one who said, I received that target letter or that Sunday. Garrett, is there any confirmation that the Trump team should be expecting an indictment?
Well, look, that's what we're hearing from our sources here now, 3 sources saying that was conveyed during this meeting today. But obviously the transmission of a target letter more than a week ago, I think, is the strongest confirmation of an expected indictment. As all of our contributors and former prosecutors have indicated, it's exceedingly rare for someone to receive a letter like the one Donald Trump says he received more than a week ago and not have federal charges follow thereafter. So that's sort of been the North Star in guiding how we've approached this. And I should say also that, people close to Donald Trump, his allies, both politically and legally, have been making the case to their colleagues and sort of more broadly that they expect this is coming. It's become a part of his campaign message. Donald Trump, really since several months ago, but especially since the receipt of this letter, has been running on the idea that he is being targeted and he expects to be indicted. And he's using it as an opportunity to argue that he is being indicted somehow on behalf of his supporters. And so I think the Trump campaign and the kind of broader orbit of his allies in Congress and politically have been expecting this for some time as a matter of when, not a matter of if.
And Catherine, just thinking on your vast experience, traditionally, normally, the process of a target letter being sent out and then meeting the defendants' lawyers, meeting with the grand jury folks, or at least with the DOJ in this case. What's the process as far as, is it days, weeks, hours?
It depends. It could be you meet, and then the next day, the same day, the next week, the prosecutor goes into the grand jury and says, at this time, members of the grand jury, I leave you to deliberate and vote. That's typically, how it's done. You do a long-term investigation. You want to make sure you've crossed all your T's, dotted all your I's. If you've given the defense an opportunity to speak, you can make sure, for justice sake, we spoke, to the defense. We've decided we're still going to proceed with an indictment. And now we're going to ask the grand jurors to deliberate and vote. So it could happen today. It could happen next week. I can't imagine there is anything that Mr. Trump's defense attorneys would say that would stop the special counsel from seeking the indictment. Stranger things have happened, but I think it's inevitable that they will seek and vote out this indictment against Mr. Trump, no matter what his defense attorneys tell them.